everyone. Welcome to RotoGrinders.com. I'm Stevie TPFL here for the SuperDraft lineup building show. I'm joined by my buddy, the guy that I just talked to, a couple hours ago, G-Need407. Grant, how are you doing, my friend?
Oh, I'm just on top of the world, hanging out here with my good friend Steven. He's not generally called. It's Stevie. I'm doing great. It's a beautiful day. I'm down here in good old San Diego. Got a beach that I can see right now. It's cloudy, which is weird for San Diego. It's a beautiful day. I'm happy, and I'm ready for some Thanksgiving slate tomorrow.
Yep, we're going to start with that. Before we get into that, everybody on YouTube, make sure you like and subscribe over there. Appreciate all that. And, you can head on over to Discord. Click Grinders Live over there on Discord and follow along with us. We'll be checking that as we go here and talking some football. Also, Grant, I have a question. How do you like your turkey?
I like dark meat and smothered like crazy with gravy.
Smothered turkey with gravy. All right. I'm all about the deep fried turkey. Like that. That's my thing.
Oh, you meant how it's cooked. I don't really care how it's cooked as long as it's smothered with gravy. Now, and someone in chat talking about no one's playing Kemba and Rubio. Guy didn't listen to the morning grind.
That is true. That is true. I remember talking basketball. It was like not too long ago. So we're going to jump in here, build, a lineup for the Thursday slate. Doesn't necessarily have to be a cash lineup. We're just going to build a lineup, on things that we're looking at here. And then we'll get into building like more of a cash build for the main slate and stuff like that. So let's start at quarterback, on a 3-game slate. It's not as hard to kind of, figure out what we want to do here at quarterback. Like quarterback's always a position that I like the multipliers. And I think that, when I'm looking at it, Trubisky is really standing out to me at 1.55x. Grant, I hate playing Mitchell Trubisky, but it's hard not to like him in this spot against Detroit, who is allowing a ton of fantasy points to quarterbacks. And, so many good reasons here outside of the fact that he's Mitchell Trubisky.
Yeah, no, I hate playing Trubisky, but this is just the spot here with a 1.55x multiplier. Everyone else is in the 1 to 1.15 range, where it'll really get interesting. And by really get interesting, I mean make you want to vomit, is if Driscoll ends up not playing here, and we have the little 2x multiplier with David Blah.
Blah, 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 blah.
Blah, blah, blah.
I did forget to mention we are building lineups over on SuperDraft.com. Use the promo code Grinders if you haven't checked them out. You get a free $10. If you haven't checked them out, make sure you sign up through the links and use that promo code so you get the free money. So, yeah, like Driscoll, obviously, like I think it's interesting because we have 1, 2, 3, 4 of the quarterbacks here on. Where we only have potentially 6 that are all really low multipliers. So I could see an instance where, like, if Trubisky doesn't go crazy or Driscoll doesn't go crazy, we could see some of these other guys at these low multipliers just kind of pay off.
Yeah, honestly, the guy I'm really looking at is Josh Allen. I'm waiting for someone to talk me off of him, but I don't think anyone will be able to. So he's averaging 214 yards passing, I think, so far this season. But you look at his games on the road, like look at the last one. Miami, 33 points. Cleveland, 25 points. For that, Tennessee, 18 points. Obviously, tough matchup. New York, 22 points. New York, 17.9 points. Like, he hasn't fared badly in a away game pretty much all season long. He's playing in the dome there. We know they love to air the ball out, and there's been so much bad weather in Buffalo. Like, pretty much every single game he's played, at least for the last however long. He's only averaging 150 yards or 180 yards passing over in Buffalo compared to 250 over on the road. So he gets a matchup in a dome with a decent game script. I think Dallas's defense is largely overrated here. He's getting one of the best multipliers on the slate, and I think he draws the lowest ownership of these 4 guys here. I love Josh Allen here, and I don't mind using him over Trubisky in tournaments at all. Like, so many people going towards everyone else. I got to assume he has the lowest ownership of any quarterback on the slate.
Yeah, and Beasley had some targets last game, but really like John Brown, you could pair Allen with Brown, and it feels good. So, um, I don't disagree with you. I like Josh Allen, especially when I'm looking at tournaments. When you're looking at this, like they're allowing the eighth fewest fantasy points per game to opposing quarterbacks, but when we look at DVOA, they're very middle of the road. Very middle of the road. They're 18th in DVOA against the pass and 18th in DVOA against the run. So Josh Allen always has that rushing upside too. Like he can always get that 1 yard touchdown run and stuff like that.
Or that 100-yard touchdown run.
That's right. Breaking it from the goal line to the other goal line.
Yeah, but sorry, I just want to mention the reason their DVOA is so much better than their actual fantasy points allowed. Their first 3 weeks were against the Giants or the Jets, I can't remember, Washington and Miami. And then I believe, Teddy Bridgewater, New Orleans team. So they have been a lot worse. They just had that ridiculously easy schedule at the beginning of the season. And then have actually had like some tough quarterbacks, but New England, it was terrible weather. Detroit, it was Driscoll, not Stafford. And so largely their entire schedule has been pretty much a cakewalk for them against opposing quarterbacks overall.
Yeah, and me, I'm much rather look at like DVOA than I am fantasy points allowed. So middle of the road defense, in my opinion. For building this lineup, I'm with you. Let's throw in Allen here. You good with that?
Oh, I am.
Let's do it.
Best running back in the league outside of Lamar Jackson.
Let's start running back here. Obviously, we have Kamara, we have Elliott on the slate, and then it's just a bunch of question marks. How are you approaching running backs? When you're looking at SuperDraft with their multipliers.
I'm going to be mixing and matching, and I normally throw running backs in my flex. I don't think that's going to be the scenario today. So, yeah, I think that you probably can pay up, but realistically, I'm fine with the mid-tier. Dad, go away. Dad, get out of here. Dad, put down the monitor. Get out of here. Yeah, so Kamara, Elliott are both fine, but I think you get a little bit more upside with, like, for tournaments. Cash, I'm probably going Kamara and Elliott. But with tournaments, I think Singletary is very much in play. Montgomery, I really like his multiplier. Freeman, I really like his multiplier. And Cohen, if you kind of game script it out in a lot of different ways, because everyone's assuming that Chicago's just going to absolutely blow out this team without Driscoll or without Stafford. But if they somehow have a bad game, which it's Trubisky, they can absolutely have a bad game and they're throwing it later on in the game. Cohen could be a great play here with this 1.55x multiplier, and there's no guarantee that Kamara or Zeke crush. We've seen it multiple times this year where they don't crush.
Yeah, so Montgomery's probably my favorite here. 1.55x against a team that's allowing the second most fantasy points per game to opposing running backs. That is 20th in DVOA against running backs. They're struggling. That offensive line or defensive line is struggling a lot. So I love David Montgomery. I'm going to go ahead and plug him in. He's, like I said, he's one of my favorites. But, even the other side of that game, I could see Detroit trying to run the ball a bunch. I don't hate, Scarborough at 1.65. And, like, should we even remotely make an argument for Pollard here in large field tournaments? Or is his snaps just so far gone that, like, we can't do that? Like, I guess – Freeman's expected back, right?
Yeah. No, it's at Pollard. I don't think I'm going there. Like, maybe I consider it differently, but even if he gets the touchdown, is he going to drastically outscore the likes of Freeman, Montgomery, and Cohen? I don't think so. And there's enough wide receiver plays on the slate where even throwing him in the flex there, probably not going to be worth it. So I personally am just, probably not going with Pollard here.
So, we're looking at this and we're looking at, Montgomery's in the lineup. We talked a little bit about Singletary. We have Allen. You can go Allen, Singletary, and not take Brown, or it is a 3-game slate. You can just go full-on Buffalo stack. But how do you want to approach our RB2 here? I know you want to mix and match, but give me one to plug into this lineup.
I'm probably let's just go with Kamara here. And then probably one of either Montgomery or Freeman.
Yeah, I'm locking in Montgomery. Like he's the guy that I really like in this spot. So switching it over to wide receiver, honestly, like outside of Michael Thomas, we have some multipliers. Like there's no, there's plenty of ways to gain at wide receiver. Like if Driscoll plays, like Galladay becomes interesting at 1.5x just because of his upside. For this lineup purposes, we're going to go ahead and just plug in John Brown and get that connection. What else are we liking here, Grant? Like we have John Brown in this team. We have 2 more wide receiver spots. We have a ton of multipliers here. Like even Allen Robinson at 1.35. If you're not playing Trubisky, you could be different by just playing A-Rob.
Yeah, I like A-Rob. I think he's a good play today. The interesting thing is Julio Jones, whether or not he's going to play. It's obviously the late game, but I think that people will largely stay away from Julio just because they're worried about him in the late game. But there's no reason to. If Julio's out, you swap immediately to Ridley or Gage, or if you already have Ridley, swap it over to Gage. Like there's plenty of swaps in the late one, including Michael Thomas. There's so many good swaps in the late game, so I have a lot of interest in Julio Jones at a 1.3x multiplier. Just the potential upside is massive with him in any game. And even if the injury is hurting him a little bit, doesn't really matter with him. We've seen him play through injuries and crush so many times throughout his career. So I like Julio. Cooper and Gallup. I don't think Buffalo's allowed a 100-yard receiver all season long, but again, they haven't played too many games on the road so far this year. And playing at home, again, very tough for opposing passing offenses and the actual passing offense of the Buffalo Bills. So it's more of a running game. It's more of a spot where they're just going to rely on the ground game. But now it's over in Dallas, and we've seen massive, massive upside from both Gallup and from Cooper. So I'm fine with both of them. Outside of them, Ridley, if Jones is out, I already mentioned it, fantastic play. Gage, if Jones is out, is an absolutely fantastic play. Anthony Miller is an interesting one. Can he get 15 points here? I think that he can, which at a near 2x multiplier is potential to pay massive dividends here. So I really like Anthony Miller. I think that he's a good spot. I think he's a good play here up at the top end of the multiplier. And then Beasley, we already kind of mentioned it, 1.7x multiplier. The guy has had 4 touchdowns in the last 6 games. Has some upside. Hasn't really shown it too much yet. But he's an in red zone threat here. He can get 5 to 6 catches and get 70 yards, which at 1.7 is more than enough multiplier on a 3-game slate.
So I love this spot for Anthony Miller. I'm glad that you brought him up. This is a very plus matchup. When we're looking at fantasy points allowed to slot wide receivers, Detroit's one of the highest. So I think Miller is a guy that you have to be looking at here. For tournaments, I'm going to go ahead and plug him in here. 1.95x. Like this is turned quickly into more of a tournament build type of lineup, but if they are going to continue to struggle against the slot, like top 4 most allowed fantasy points, like this is not a bad spot. So, outside of that, I agree with a lot of the stuff that you said. I don't really have too much more to add. I think Cooper and Gallup is the biggest question, in my opinion. Like, what are we going to see here from Buffalo? Are they going to shadow Cooper and Gallup's going to have a big game? Is Cooper just going to get open and do things that way too? So it'd be interesting to see. But if Tre'Davious White continues to shadow and he shadows Cooper here, I think you have to play Gallup or Randall Cobb. So we don't have any Dallas exposure here. But I think if you're building this team, I think you plug in like Julio Jones at 1.3, and if he doesn't play, you decide whether you want to play Thomas or Ridley. And I think that
or Gage,
with it not being a PPR site, the touchdown equity, maybe you throw like a Hooper or something. So it'd be interesting to see how people approach this, but I'm with you. I really like Julio. Like SuperDraft is a site that you are able to have late swap, and you have to take advantage of it. Late swap in basketball as well. So, let us know what you guys think. Like and subscribe over there on YouTube, and, leave a comment and let us know what you think on the whole Julio Jones situation heading into Thursday's game. So, I'm going to plug Julio in here, Grant. We're going to go to tight end. Austin Hooper is out, right? I forgot about that.
Hooper's not beautiful on this slate, to say the least.
Yeah, like Graham is going to be the tight end here. I forgot that Hooper was out. That's my bad. What are we looking at here? Like, are we playing Logan Thomas just in case he plays some quarterback?
I mean, honestly, I guess it's not the worst idea in the world. Oh gosh, yeah, the tight end is not pretty here, but Logan Thomas, I mean, aside from him playing quarterback, it's still not the worst idea in the world. So they're 1.85x multiplier. Could potentially get a touchdown. I'm basically looking for guys that have the potential for a touchdown here, because the obvious chalk is Cook, but is Cook guaranteed 10 points? Not even remotely. Like, I know he's been good recently, but like, is he guaranteed 10 points? No. The problem is that Atlanta's a good matchup for opposing tight ends. They allow a lot of targets, so Cook's almost guaranteed to get a little bit of work here, and that's what makes it tough. But Witten, like, I know it's not a full point PPR site, but Witten can absolutely get 5 to 6 targets. Buffalo has shut down opposing wide receivers pretty well. They've also done well versus tight end. I don't have a huge lean in tight end. Honestly, every single tight end from 1.1x to 1.9x, I think you can play. If I had to name my favorite, with Hawkinson coming in here, Chicago funnels targets to opposing tight ends. Like, Hawkinson's destroyed me pretty much all season long after I started chasing in week 1. But like, I got to assume he's going to do something here against Chicago when they can shut down opposing wide receivers. So Hawkinson's probably my favorite, followed by Cook. Cook's number 1 for cash, but for tournaments, he's probably number 2 for me. Then it goes to probably Witten, Knox, and then Graham probably.
Yeah, the thing about Graham is, like, he ran 33 routes last week and only had 2 targets. So it's tough to trust any type of production there, but he did play 70% of the snaps. Stalker played 42% of the snaps too, like, and he had the same amount of or one less target. So it's just tough to trust that situation. I think right now I lean Jared Cook and just taking the chalk, but like, man, Buffalo's tough because Buffalo is allowing the least fantasy points per game to opposing tight ends. So Buffalo is tough, and like, Witten might be an interesting fade on this slate, but tight end is just so ugly that, like, Graham is a guy that I'd throw into some builds. I like Hawkinson, assuming that he plays, but I like it more if Driscoll plays. Like, the whole Detroit situation is just, we're waiting and seeing and taking a wait and see approach on that whole thing. So I'm going to throw Jared Cook in there. I feel like we have Miller in here. Like, we're already different, and we're different at quarterback too. Like, we're so different in this build anyway that we can play Jared Cook, and I'm perfectly fine with it.
Yeah.
All right. Yes. So make sure you're loading up on your gravy turkey and enjoying some football with family and friends. Let's move on.
How much gravy is too much gravy?
How much gravy is there such thing as too much gravy?
I think if you're drinking it straight from the gravy boat, maybe. That's a maybe, but oh man, gravy's delicious.
Now, do you only do turkey or do you do other stuff as well?
We used to go ham. Now I think we're just strictly turkey. One thing we always have for every Thanksgiving is mac and cheese. Generally Kraft mac and cheese. Always spiral is the only shape you should be going with. But yeah, I mean, mashed potatoes, turkey, mac and cheese, and stuffing, pretty much all we need.
All right. My wife is going to come to your Thanksgiving. She's going to forget about ours and just go to yours. So,
I mean, we're at opposite ends of the country, so I'll make sure the mac and cheese is very good.
Yeah, Thanksgiving on the beach with mac and cheese, gravy, and turkey. Like, yeah, I'm going to have to buy her a plane ticket when we get done. So, we have another NFL free roll this week on Yahoo. As I'm pulling up the main slate here, just want to let you guys know the premium features in Lineup HQ for Yahoo will be free this weekend, Friday through Sunday. We're also going to be having Lineup HQ Express on the RG app free for Thanksgiving Day through the weekend slate, and we'll have a video coming soon that will explain the multi-build function and other features. Be sure to let viewers know Be sure to let everybody know that if you're building lineups and everything, you can
You
do
just
it
Ron
on.
Burgundy yourself.
I did. You can do it on Lineup HQ Express. I totally blame our producer for putting it at the end of the promo instead of putting it at the beginning of the promo. But I was gonna just roll with it, and Grant had to point it out.
Always point out mistakes, or you'll
Always
never learn
point
from
it
them,
out.
Stevie.
I'm telling you now, like I'm gonna fly out there too, and we're gonna drink some more Fireball together. So.
Oh, I'm on the White Claw train now, but I still will do some.
You drink White Claws? Like you just admitted the worst thing ever. Like you
I don't
realize
even
that
care.
I'm gonna make so much fun of you on every podcast for the rest of the year because you drink White Claws. We have totally gotten off track. I blame Devin.
I wonder if Fireball goes good in White Claws. Fire Claws.
That sounds disgusting. I would never mix.
Is it Fire Claws or White Balls?
White Balls. All right.
Want to make me some white balls? Oh, gosh, let's get going.
And your dad was in the room a little while ago, and you're asking about white balls? Like, man, oh, man.
I think he's got
quarterback on the main slate. Let's get started here. Looking at these guys that are 1 to 1.3x, is there anybody that's standing out to you in this range that that you'd play outside of maybe like Patrick Mahomes against Oakland?
Mahomes always got massive upside. Like people will probably shy away from him, but pairing him up with his wide receivers, if he does go off, then he could absolutely still crush and win you a tournament. The guys that are interesting in this range are Kyler Murray and Jared Goff. I'm not really big on this Rams defense, and Kyler Murray is still a guy that has upside. And Jared Goff, he's been horrible at times, but you look at the times he's been horrible. And over the last, 6 matchups? So 6.3 against Baltimore, 6.2 against Chicago, 6.7 against Pittsburgh. Those are not easy games. Cincinnati, Atlanta, 25 points. San Francisco, 2 points. Seattle, Tampa Bay, 20 and 26. He's done well in good matchups. He's done fairly well in good matchups. And he ends up passing the ball a lot because they can actually get stuff going because they're going against terrible secondaries. He's going up against Arizona, and Arizona, as we know, is not very good on the defensive end, and they run a bunch of plays quickly, so that Rams will likely be running a whole lot of plays. This is going to be similar to the Tampa Bay game. I think Goff puts up a massive game here, and potentially using him at 1.3x is a great way to go.
Yeah, I usually like Goff more at home, but with the fact that he's going to be playing at such a high pace here and this team's allowing the most fantasy points per game to opposing quarterbacks, and the fact that he's only at 1.3, there's a lot of good arguments that you can make here for Jared Goff, even on the road, but it's in Arizona. It's not like it's flying cross country and playing in Miami, or I guess that's not the best example, but I think that you can look at him. I don't mind Murray. Patrick Mahomes is really interesting here. I love the multipliers at quarterbacks and everything, but Patrick Mahomes against Oakland, he could throw for 4 or 5 touchdowns in this game. So maybe it's getting the pieces around Patty Mahomes here. But Jared Goff, I love that call. Let's scroll down a little bit. Just kind of looking at this next tier of multipliers. I think, a guy that we have to consider here is Nick Foles going up against Tampa. Tampa, funnel defense. They've been playing a lot better. This defense has been playing a lot better. So maybe not the best spots. We're going to have to see if Carson Wentz is going to play or not because he gets the Dolphins. And if you're facing the Dolphins, you're automatically on the list for fantasy.
Yeah, no, that's the interesting part. He is facing the Dolphins, and we don't know who he's going to be throwing to, which in a normal circumstance means, all right, you might want to stay away from that. This is not a normal circumstance. This is the Dolphins. They can easily get destroyed by any quarterback with any offensive weapons, literally any offensive weapons. So Wentz, I think, is one of the most interesting ones there, a 1.45x multiplier. Nick Foles going up against Tampa. Oh, my gosh. And they don't even have to travel too much. They can get in a bus and go over to Jacksonville, I assume. I don't know Florida geography too well, but I guess, no, it's in Jacksonville. It's in Florida. Tampa Bay is going to be going over there. But Nick Foles, like we've seen him put up a massive amount of throws every single week. Granted, they've been coming from behind each game, but he can put up big numbers, and now he gets just a funnel defense where they're not going to be wanting to run Fournette a whole lot. So Foles could potentially throw the ball 45 times in this game here and can put up an absolutely massive game. Other interesting spots, I mean, Fitzpatrick going up against that bad Philly secondary. I'll keep playing him, and he'll keep destroying me. Derek Carr at 1.55x going up against Kansas City. Obviously, the game script goes that way. And then Hodges going up against Cleveland, 1.6x multiplier. Even without Juju, like his play is going to be kind of concentrated on other guys and maybe a Dinkins offense, but still 1.6x multiplier. All he needs is a few tuds, and he ends up crushing.
Yeah, like let's just be honest. Hodges has looked a lot better than Mason Rudolph. So we'll see how that all plays out. But
plus, he's better at avoiding getting hit with helmets.
Oh man, is it too soon for that joke? Like, is that?
I mean, he came out of it fine. Well, did you see what was happening in the Cleveland tailgate?
No.
Yeah, look it up after the show. It is classic Cleveland.
So, what about fiery redhead Andy Dalton? Like, should we consider him at all here going up against the Jets? Like, he's playing with something to prove at this point, right? Like, or he's just like not going to care and just be like, I've made my money.
He's not playing for something to prove. He's playing for a new contract in a new place. I don't think he wants to retire. I mean, although I guess
that's something to prove, technically, right? Like, if he wants to play somewhere else, like technically he's playing to prove that he still got it.
Yeah, no, I don't hate it. I mean, it's a big enough multiplier, and I haven't looked at his wide receivers as much as I probably should have. Let me check out their multiplier. But Boyd's sitting there at 1.6x multiplier. We saw what he was doing in that offense. Tate's sitting there at 1.95x multiplier. Like, I don't have interest in him just based off of raw points. Like, I don't think he's in cash game play. But in tournaments, like, just because of the way you compare it, if he goes for a 25-point game, which will get him up to close to 40, then his wide receivers are going to go for 25, 30 points each with their multipliers there. So I think in tournaments, absolutely he's in play.
We'll be coming back to this whole Cincy game stack type build for when we do a tournament build here. But back to cash games. Are we kind of in agreement on just playing Jared Goff here going into Arizona and cash?
I hate to say it, but yes. Yes, we are.
Yeah, well, you have to take advantage of the multipliers. Like, you have to take advantage of that 1.3.
It's still Jared. It's still Goff. Every time I do it, I just vomit a little bit, but it's the right move.
I honestly, I really do think that if Carson Wentz is good to go, you can consider him in cash games at 1.45 against Miami. Like, he's going to throw 2 touchdowns at least against Miami. They're terrible. So you can consider him. We're going to early week. It's Wednesday. Obviously a lot can change to Sunday, but we're going to put Jared Goff in here. The running back situation, Grant, is so interesting. It's like, they're telling us like Christian McCaffrey is way up here and everybody else is way below him. What do you want to do at running back in this 1 to 1.5 range?
Well, Christian McCaffrey is way up here and everyone else is way below him.
It's true, and I don't disagree. It's just like it was interesting to see how they had the multipliers set up.
Yeah, I know. I mean, you just lock in 30 points with McCaffrey. It's not like Henry's in a decent spot there, but he doesn't get a whole lot of receiving game work. Barkley, who knows what's happening with him? It's infuriating, but it is what it is, and he's 1.4x. I think he's in play. Like Nick Chubb, not an easy matchup. Fournette, not an easy matchup, but should get some receiving work out of the backfield. Like, no one's really in that great of a spot, so McCaffrey is still very much in play. I might throw him in cash, and then the second best guy going up against Cincinnati, you hate to say it, but Le'Veon Bell, 1.5x multiplier, huge upside. Like, I don't want to do it, but I'm probably going to do it, and he might be the best play on the slate for cash.
Talking about like how we're looking at Jared Goff and like how like we don't want to play him, and we go from Jared Goff to like and Lev Bell, who has just been an absolute letdown, and like there's so many good plays in this 1.5 range. Josh Jacobs is a guy that's really interesting here. Kansas City's been absolutely terrible against the run all season. And he's at 1.55x. Jacksonville has been terrible. And we could talk about, Ronald Jones at 1.7x. There's just a lot of different ways to approach running back here, but I'm with you. Let's plug Lev Bell in here for now. Let's continue to scroll down a little bit, Grant, though. There's tons of ways to go. I mentioned Ronald Jones. Williams for Indy had a really high workload. Pittsburgh situation, tournament-wise, Eckler's always kind of interesting. What else do you like here in this running back?
The Philip Lindsay going up against the Chargers. 20th ranked in opposing points given up to opposing running backs here. Lindsay is a guy that isn't quite the bell cow in that offense, hasn't done great in recent weeks, but he's still gotten 10 or 15 to 18 touches. Like, he's probably going to get that again. The game script hasn't been great for him, and it may be the same this week, but still 1.8x multiplier. That's massive there. He can get a touchdown. He can get 2 touchdowns. He can get 3 touchdowns. The Chargers tend to keep games close for no apparent reason. It's infuriating, but absolutely a good play. Fournette, you can pair him with Foles, just because of the massive amount of dump-offs they give to him and the massive amount of dump-offs that Tampa Bay allows. It wouldn't surprise me if he got 10 receptions in this game. Like, absolutely can happen. Outside of them, Miles Sanders, if Howard is out, is interesting going up against Miami. 1.75x multiplier. Like him, Drake seems like the bell cow in this offense now. That's a high-paced offense going up against the Rams and probably a high-scoring game. So I think that he's in play. Outside of them, not really a whole lot that I'm looking at.
Yeah, like even the Tampa situation, like Peyton Barber got involved, last week, and like that whole situation is kind of murky too. But for cash games, like I like I'm almost consider playing Philip Lindsay in cash at 1.8, but I think that I have a tough time not playing like an Aaron Jones in cash or like a Barkley in cash just because of their multipliers. There's a bunch of different ways that you can go here for tournaments. Don't get me wrong, but in cash games, like, is there a reason not to play like Aaron Jones or Barkley here at 1.4x?
No.
And like, there's an argument to be made for playing McCaffrey in cash and just taking the raw points.
Oh yeah, it's a guaranteed 30 points. I think Cardi might say different, but who cares? It's going up against Washington.
We want Jones or do we want Barkley?
Lev Bell. No, let's go with Barkley. Outside this bad stretch, he's been good his entire career. And
he's been playing over 90% of the snaps. Green Bay allows the third most fantasy points to running backs. They're 28th in DVOA. Like, it's a really good matchup for Barkley, and his multiplier is a little too high.
Yeah, plus, have you seen the size of his quads?
Have you seen him work out pregame? So we got Lev Bell, we got Barkley. Let's go over to wide receiver. Anything like instantly standing out to you at wide receiver?
Instantly, no. Potentially Christian Kirk sitting there at 1.55x. Brandon Cooks sitting there at 2x. Alshon Jeffrey, if he plays versus Miami, sitting there at 1.75x. Those would be the guys that probably stand out the most at the beginning. And then obviously the Andy Dalton situation going up against the pass funnel with Boyd and Tate sitting there at high multipliers. Those are what immediately stand out to me. But outside of that, I don't think there's anything that I immediately want to throw in my lineup. I mean, sitting at the bottom, Godwin and Evans, both of them can go off for a massive game. Don't mind either of them. Devontae Adams at 1.3x multiplier is interesting just because of the sheer volume of targets that he gets each and every week going up against a bad Giants team, and people largely overlook him because of him being injured for the majority of the season. But we just look at him and what he's done over pretty much the entirety of the last year and a half. Last 4 games, 12 targets, 10 targets, 11 targets, 15 targets. He has the touchdown upside, which he only has 1 touchdown on the season. You cannot expect that to continue there. his multiplier, he has a legit 30-point upside before the multiplier, so 40-point upside. And then DJ Chark going up against the worst pass defense in the league, him at 1.4, and Cooper Kupp, if we want to pair him with Goff at 1.35, immediately stand off the page.
Yeah, and like you don't necessarily have to pair in cash games, but like even Cooks, but Kupp like 1.35 is just it's a really high multiplier for a guy that is going to be in the slot, avoiding Patrick Peterson. So I don't mind that. Like the guy, I was asking you about like the guy that stands out. The guy that stands out to me, I think the most is Sammy Watkins at 1.7x here, going up against Oakland. I love Sammy Watkins here. I think you can play him in all formats. I know that Tyreek Hill is the only guy that has a 1x multiplier, but they didn't really throw the ball a ton last week. But like you just look at this and you look at the snaps and everything, Sammy Watkins, there's no reason to not have interest in him in this spot. Yeah.
I mean, the reason not to have interest is because he's destroyed me after chasing week one, not like Hawkinson, but multiplyer's high enough and he can absolutely go off for a big game. I like that call there. I think you're probably right about him. That's it's pretty. But there's also like a lot of guys in that same range. Chris Conley's getting a large volume of work here. 9 targets, 8 targets, 7 targets, 7 targets, 7 targets in his last 5. Like he's in there at 1.7x multiplier. Westbrook getting a decent amount of work. Got 9 targets last week, 8 receptions, 6 the week before. He's a guy that can absolutely be in for a big game. And then Samuel, if he ends up playing, Jeffrey, if he ends up playing. Like there are other guys in this range that might keep me off of them. But yeah, just looking at Sammy Watkins absolutely stands out as a good play.
Yeah, and Alshon Jeffrey, like you said, he's expected to come back, but just because he's on track doesn't mean he's going to play. You're going to have to pay attention to that. But if he were to play at 1.75, I think he would be another guy you have to be looking at here. So, is there any other maybe tournament plays in this range that you have interest in? I guess we're waiting to see what happens with Juju, if he's going to play or not.
Mike Williams, 1.8x. Tough matchup going up against Denver. Hasn't done a whole lot recently, but was getting large volumes of targets at certain times this year. Phillip Rivers, everyone assumes is dust, but Mike Williams still doesn't have a touchdown this season. And the guy is realistically a massive red zone threat. So he's a guy that I think has some tournament upside here. Outside of him, I already mentioned Tate, 1.95x multiplier. Big upside there.
Yeah, and we talked about Ryan Fitzpatrick and all that stuff, but Allen Hurns, another guy, 1.95. How much I like Allen Hurns. So he's running
Devontae Parker.
Yeah, he's running a ton of routes too, and we talked about the Cincinnati situation. Let's finish out these wide receivers for cash games, though. We have Cooper Kupp in here. Give me another guy, and I'll throw another guy in there.
Devontae Adams.
All right, I like that one. I'm gonna take the multiplier guy here, and I'm gonna say Tyrell Williams at 1.65 for cash going up against Kansas City. I feel like they're going to be throwing the ball a ton in that game. Might not be the safest cash play, but he's still the guy that has the market share and targets outside of Waller. So we need a tight end. Grant, 1 to 1.5 are all the good tight ends. All the sexy tight ends are the guys that don't have any multipliers.
Yeah. Honestly, Kittle at 1.2, still don't mind that. Still massive upside. Still can go for a huge game here. Just put up 23. He can put up a 30-burger on you. Hunter Henry going up against Denver. Large volume of targets. Big touchdown equity. Been a fantastic tight end since he came back. My favorite, though, is probably Darren Waller going up against Chiefs. They force a lot of dump-offs to tight ends. And so Waller, I think, could potentially be in for 10, 12 targets in this matchup here. They're probably going to be forced to throw later to try and keep pace with Kansas City. Waller's got a 1.35x multiplier. He's probably the guy that I like the most at tight end. But if you want to stay in this range, I'd go him Kittle, Kelsey, or Henry.
Yeah, like if you're not playing Tyrell Williams, I do think you can look at Waller. Kind of scrolling down here, like Griffin is kind of interesting. He keeps scoring touchdowns, it seems like, every week, and the matchup is really juicy here up against Cincinnati. I know that we have let Bell already, and the targets aren't like secure whatsoever for Ryan Griffin, but touchdowns are touchdowns. And the other guy that is interesting, if you're not going like a Cooper Kupp, like Everett up against Arizona, like it's tight ends against Arizona, like let's not feel like or think that like this isn't just a thing. Like you can play any tight end against this Arizona defense at this point. So if Everett plays and he's good to go, like he's super interesting. But if he doesn't play, Higbee becomes a really good play.
Yeah. I mean, Higbee's quite the receiving tight end, but 1.9x multiplier. Dude got 6 targets last week. Yeah. Arizona. It's Arizona, guys. Yeah, I don't mind that at all. And then also, if a whole bunch of Philly guys are out, Goddard, they'll be running 2 tight end sets. Goddard's a 1.65x multiplier. Like him quite a bit. Noah Fant has been doing a decent amount in this offense recently. He's been getting a lot of targets in recent weeks, 10 and 5 in the last 2 weeks. I think that he could be in for a decent game here. Outside of that, like I'm probably just staying in the lower multiplier range because I don't see a massive amount of upside here.
Yeah, like Gesicki is a guy that could potentially score a touchdown against Philly. I don't hate that. But yeah, like, it'd be interesting to see how these high multiplier tight ends do, because like a 2 touchdown day for many of these high multiplier tight ends, you're going to be in trouble. But I'm going to take Tyrell Williams out of the last wide receiver spot and go and play Waller here in cash. I kind of like that more than I like Williams. So we're going to leave a wide receiver in the flex open. We talked about a ton of wide receivers as we were going, and the flex, I always prefer running back in cash games. Grant, we're going to build a tournament team here. If anybody in chat wants us to build a game stack, we should have enough time after we get done with this one. But we're gonna build the old famous Jets Cincinnati game stack here, Grant. Like
exactly what everyone wants.
Like, man, if this game does anything offensively with these multipliers, like you can crush here. And like, stop me if you want anything different, but I'm gonna go Dalton, I'm gonna go Bell, I'm gonna go Boyd, and I'm gonna go Robbie Anderson.
I'm gonna throw Tate in there too, but honestly, yeah, like you can go Tate, you can go DT, you can go anyone here. I mean, DT hasn't really been great this season, but dude's still getting targets outside of last week. Has some upside.
I was just going to say, you could take Anderson out and you can play Griffin at tight end and hope he scores the touchdown. Like, there's so many ways that you can approach this game stack. If there's 5 or 6 touchdowns in this game, like, you could crush with these multipliers.
Last 3 games, Jets have yet to score less than 34 points. They've also yet to score over 34 points. So now we know, based on this sample size, big enough for Derek Carty here, they are going to score exactly 34 points in this game. It's just math.
Yeah. And it's not like Sam Darnold threw for 293 yards against Washington and 4 touchdowns, and they threw 315 and 2 touchdowns against Oakland last week. Like, it's not like Cincinnati's defense is good. Like, that's the thing. Like, Andy Dalton hasn't played in a few weeks, but he's got something to prove if he wants to, be an NFL quarterback next season.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's plenty of teams that need quarterbacks right now. So maybe
no team needs quarterbacks. No team. Quarterback's the easiest position to fill.
Were you a quarterback, Grant?
No, I was what you called a cheerleader.
Oh.
I don't think that was true. I was actually a mascot.
You were a mascot?
I was a semi-pro mascot. Yeah, come on,
semi-pro. You should put that in your bio. A semi-pro, former semi-pro mascot.
Yeah, we won the championship that year. Could have gotten a ring. Forgot to follow up on that.
Were you like the Oregon Duck? Did you do push-ups?
No, I couldn't do push-ups. And tried to throwing the ball behind the back to make a basket. Didn't work. Just mostly hung out with the cheerleaders.
So it's more of just extra gravy and no push-ups.
Yeah. Gravy weighs you down.
All right. Is there a game stack you want to build here? We didn't get any input from the chat on the game stack that they would like us to build. So is there any ones that like you're looking at here? Maybe the Chiefs in Oakland. We always tend to build the highest total, and that one's sitting at 51.5.
I mean, we could do potentially Philly, Miami.
Oh, I'm down for that. Like, I'm all about playing, some Ryan Fitzpatrick.
Oh yeah, greatest QB of all time. Why wouldn't you play him?
It's all in the magic. Any of these running backs, like you don't play a running back from Miami. Is there any of these Philly running backs that you might play?
Sanders. If this is assuming Howard is out. If Howard's out, then Sanders is not a bad play at 1.75x going up against Miami. He's probably going to be running the ball a lot. I don't know if I would want to go with Ajayi, but I don't hate it. It's not the worst idea in the world. I know he didn't do a whole lot in this last game, but the game script really didn't call for it. Now he's going up against Miami. They could potentially give him an even workload with Sanders. Sanders is going to draw significantly more ownership. There's a good matchup, and Ajayi can absolutely snake some touchdowns here.
All right, well, let's go with Sanders. We got Fitzpatrick, Sanders. I'm going to throw in Allen Hurns here. Love the 1.95, and you don't have to go full game stack here. Maybe run it back with Alshon Jeffrey if he plays at 1.75, and you're off to the races here.
Yeah, Sean Jeffrey and Goddard at 1.65x multiplier taking up that tight end spot's not the worst idea in the world.
Yeah. Is there any large field running backs that you'd throw into a lineup like this?
Large field running backs. I mean, you already mentioned what's his nuts? Ronald Jones sitting there in a pretty high multiplier. Not a bad idea there. We all know that Jacksonville is a much worse run defense. They've been getting blown out quite a bit recently. So Ronald Jones could see 1-2 touchdowns in this matchup, 20 carries, few targets. He's been involved in the passing game recently, even in some tough matchups.
Yeah, I have a feeling Ronald Jones could have a big game here, so I don't hate that. We talked about a lot of wide receivers too. You throw Boyd in there. I'm going to throw Chris Conley. I'm going to run back the Ronald Jones with Chris Conley here. Get a little secondary correlation with our main correlation here.
I like it.
Well, duh. Bearded brothers have to stick together. Anything else before we get out of here? I feel like we covered a bunch here. Obviously we got the Thursday slates. We talked about the Yahoo promo. Grant pointed out that I messed it up, and that's fine. And we talked about all kinds of stuff. And if you guys are over on YouTube, like I said, make sure you subscribe to the YouTube page over there at RotoGrinders, and leave us a comment. Tell us what you think, and tell us gravy or no gravy on the turkey.
No, if you're saying team no gravy, then you're probably going to lose money in DFS because that's not a smart move.
All right. Well,
don't be like Dean, guys.
Dean, there's no way Dean likes gravy.
Yeah. The weirdest thing is all his food takes, he acts like, oh yeah, this is well known. People don't like ketchup. People don't like yellow cheese. No, Dean, that's just you.
You can tune in to Dean and the guys over here for the flagship show for basketball. He is GNefro7. I'm Stevie TPFL. Good luck in your contest, and we'll see you guys next week.
Tickets.